You know, I really hope the studio is ready. Things are really weird today.
Hey,
What
welcome
the-
to Supermarket Sweep AI edition. ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, you're about to scan, total, and pay. 30 seconds on the clock. Ready?
Ready.
Let's bag some bites.
Prepared.
And go!
Right, I've had just about enough of this. I booked the studio today for today's AI news show. Well, that skit was a lot of fun to make. I used to love Supermarket Sweep. I used to watch that as a kid, I think when I was 6 or 7 years old. But the question is, why do you need to go shopping anymore if you can ask your AI to do it for you? Shopping might be a thing of the past. So yes, this week we're talking all about payment protocols as shopping comes to OpenAI as part of Stripe and OpenAI's new agentic payment protocols. There's also some updates from Livable which are absolutely going to blow your mind. But before we get to that, we've got a big upgrade from a model you probably haven't heard anything from for quite a while. Yes, we're talking about Sora 2. Long eclipsed by the likes of VO3, Kling 2.5 and Seed Dance, we'd heard nothing about OpenAI's Sora models for a long time. And I think it's fair to say we all assumed that they had died a death. But when the original Sora was announced, it looked revolutionary. But it took so long to come out that other models far outpaced it in terms of realism, cost and physics. Plus, to be honest, its image to video features were heavily restricted and limited. But now it's back with its own separate app and a whole bunch of features to bring it up to speed with the other video generators. So let's take a moment to go through some of the features that it has. So version 2 has more realistic physics, better control and high quality audio, which brings it in line with VO3. OpenAI are also bringing out a Sora iOS app, and that's built for sharing AI generated videos with friends. So in some ways they're going after TikTok as well. Now let's talk a little bit about physics. If you used Sora 1 and asked it to do anything remotely complex, getting your AI character to the gym or getting it to do some complex gymnastics, then you will have noticed some very weird things happening with it. Now Sora 2 fixes this, and this is a big step forward in models that deeply understand the physical world. Now what do I mean by this? Well, we've heard Google DeepMind talk in detail about this as they progress with Genie 3, which is their real world environment generator. We actually made a video about this a few weeks ago. So there does seem to be this consensus emerging that we need a lot more than just clean, accurate training data to get video right. In fact, we need the models to have an understanding of the rules of physics itself and then to apply them. OpenAI are calling this their GPT-3 moment for video, with Sora being a GPT-1, a proof of concept, and GPT-3 being a foundational, usable breakthrough moment that enters the zeitgeist. Now, is that true? And is this really much of a step up from VO3, Kling, or Moon Valley's model Mari, which is designed for Hollywood? Well, I'm not too sure. Now, video has thus far not been one of OpenAI's strengths, nor has it been its focus. But they have a tendency to surprise us and to switch course rapidly. Now, before we talk about some of the other features, let's have a little bit of a demo.
Ready when you are. 3, 2, 1, go! Dude, you alright?
I'm good.
Whoa, steady. Damn it!
Hold steady, brace! Heave! There! Shield wall for the north!
Thank you, Rocket. I owe you my life.
Oh, Rocket!
This is kind of wild. Turns out I can actually fly. Watch, ready? Look, totally off the ground. Let's go outside. The view up here is insane. I can just drift around, like, still figuring out the landing, but it's the best feeling ever.
Now, one of the coolest parts of Sora 2 is the cameo feature. So you record yourself just once, you authenticate yourself to make sure the model knows that it's you, and then you can use your own sound and video consistently in any scene. At the moment, if you want to achieve this, you need either to set up an AI avatar in Kling or HeyGen, or to do some kind of complex workaround. And that could involve Nano Banana to insert yourself into an image, which you then use a video generator like VO3 to animate, a lip sync model combined with 11 Labs Voice Labs. Now that's a lot of subscriptions right there. Of course, you could use an open source model like Infinite Talk and spin that up with some comfy UI. But Sora is crucially bringing all of these elements together in one seamless system. Here's a fun video of Sam Altman walking raging through OpenAI's data center with the GPUs burning from all the people using Sora 2. I think it's pretty accurate, to be honest, given the hype and the interest around it. Now, Sora have also announced a TikTok-style app where users can share their reels and creations and engage with them. So I'll be super curious to see not just how this plays out, but how the other big players respond to it as well. Are we likely to see any upgrades to VO3 that make character consistency with voice a lot easier? Livable now. I remember when the idea of Claude being able to generate CSS in HTML and preview it was revolutionary. Now we think nothing of Livable generating React, Next.js and Tailwind. Livable does love a little bit of Tailwind. And this creates incredibly sophisticated front ends with all kinds of features. To deploy this though was still a little bit of a rigmarole. You had to buy a domain, deploy it to GitHub, and then of course you had to add in the backend and use one of the coding tools to code that separately. But Livable has just blown all of that out the water with Livable Cloud. So you can now deploy within Livable, but not only that, it will build the backend for you. So you could potentially do auth in one prompt. Now this is absolutely insane. There's even now a tab for security fixes, though, as you would expect me to say, you want to be very careful about that and probably much better off using a more serious cloud and security hosting provider for that. It's also curious to pose the question about where this leaves Cursor, Codex or the new updated Claude code. And we're going to come to that later in the video. Some blockchain news now. The value of crypto and the blockchain with AI is often not talked a lot about, but it has a clear value, helping to determine what is true and who owns what. Now with AI taking care of payments, Cloudflare have just launched X402 through Coinbase. That's a protocol for authorizing machine-to-machine payments. And this of course comes hot off the heels of OpenAI launching shopping directly from ChatGPT and their new agentic payment protocol, which they've open sourced. So the reality is that right now we need a way for agents or indeed vanilla LLMs to verify other agents to hand over payments. Now to start with, this will be based on stablecoins, but it can be used to monetize traditional use cases as well as a class of new use cases. Now the example that Cloudflare has listed are, for instance, an assistant that is able to purchase accessories for your Halloween costume from multiple merchants, an AI agent that pays per browser rendering session instead of committing to a monthly subscription fee, an autonomous stock trader that makes micropayments for high quality real-time data feed to drive decisions. Future versions of X402 could be agnostic, off the payment rails, accommodating credit cards and bank accounts in addition to stablecoin. So let's break this down a little bit then. I think the point here is how we pay for goods and services in the AI age. Indeed, how we manage our budgets in the AI age. All of this is going to completely change forever. And as we've covered in previous videos, we're starting to see the architecture of AI agents come to life, and payments are no different. If we expect our AI agents to go out and make payments for us, then of course we need a protocol and we need to ensure that these payments are legitimate. And we need to make sure that our AI agents are not being ripped off or scammed in the same way as that we can get ripped off or scammed when we make payments. Now, as we mentioned in passing, OpenAI has integrated shopping into ChatGPT via Shopify and Etsy. This is huge, and it means instant checkout from the app. Now, it's being rolled out to users in the US first, but crucially, the technology is being open source. And to my mind, this will change advertising on ChatGPT forever. We've heard a lot about monetization recently. How is OpenAI going to make money with all this investment and make its investment back? And how is AI optimization changing SEO? And we've also heard a lot about SEO being eclipsed by so-called AI SEO, where optimization is done from the chatbot rather than for the website. So this is another way that OpenAI can perhaps make money, by recommending products to users based on their chat history or when they directly ask for it. And all of this speaks to the idea of how we interface with machines changing rapidly. Now, graphical interfaces as a way of operating with computers has remained unchanged since the 90s. But now we can do tasks directly from ChatGPT via the MCP, write our own software, and with a little help from Livable, deploy it. And now we can set our agents to make money and indeed spend money for us, with ChatGPT being able to shop for us. So pretty soon we might ask the question, do we actually need an operating system or software, or will we just open our machine and see an LLM acting for us? Finally, at the end of last week's video, you may have seen my AI avatar mention Sonnet 4.5, which dropped just as we were about to go live. Any feedback on these segments, by the way, is much appreciated. We're always trying to make the AI avatar segment seem as realistic and as human as possible. I do think that Sonnet 4.5 is an answer to OpenAI's Codex with GPT-5. and it can now run for 30 hours at a time on complex tasks, which I think is just pretty amazing. And we went over the benchmarks last week, particularly SWE, but they are worth mentioning again. Sonnet 4.5 is able to debug even more complex and even new languages like Swift, and it now has an interface overhaul. Now, friends in my developer community have said that it actually helps them get through significant blockers, and it saved them from having to switch to OpenAI. Code now has checkpoints, a refreshed terminal, and a VS Code extension. It's also quite clearly less sycophantic and smart. And the very smart Professor Ethan Mollick was able to put Sonnet 4.5 through its paces. Over on Substack, he wrote this blog post where he gave it this complex economics paper with the data and asked it to replicate the findings. Now you might say, okay, well, big deal, it's just a copy and paste job, right? Well, actually not. Let's look at Ethan Mollick's own words. It appears that AI could check many published papers, reproducing results with implications for all of scientific research. There are still barriers to doing this, including benchmarking for accuracy and fairness, but it's now a real possibility. Reproducing research may be an AI task, not a job, but it is also might change an entire field of human endeavour dramatically. In other words, an AI agent could check whether the experiments and the results of a paper are credible work that is usually an agonising long process undertaken by junior researchers and a peer review board. I think it gives the general public the ability to unpick the credibility of academic research, and it may well make existing research even more accurate or even change academic fields, as Ethan Mollick pointed out. But I think a better rule of thumb is that rather than looking at the SWE benchmarks is to look at the METR test. This compares the accuracy of software tasks taken depending on the time taken. Now Sonnet 4.5 is not yet on this graph, but we can see that GPT-5 was miles ahead of Sonnet 4, and we can also see that progression all the way back to GPT-3. Closing out today then, the AI race is continuing to heat up. OpenAI is going after every domain, from video generation to TikTok to shopping. But not content with letting OpenAI keep the top spot, Anthropic have raced out Sonnet 4.5 to ensure they don't lose their crown for coding. As a consumer, or indeed as a company, I think that this is a golden age of technology and AI, and there have been a lot of announcements this week. Some weeks nothing happens in AI, and some weeks everything seems to happen. So they say a week is a long time in politics. I say a day is a long time in AI. All right, thank you from me. I will see you next week's video. But before you go, make sure you like and subscribe. If you enjoyed that video, do leave us a comment. I am super curious to hear how you've been using Sonnet 4.5. Have you seen this as a step up from Sonnet 4, or do you think that some of what we've talked about today is just hype and it's overblown? Let me know.